to Welcome to Jackie's Literary Corner. I am Jackie, and it's time for me to do a review. So, I thought I would do a separate review of this book because first, I won't have this book when I do my wrap up, and second of all, it's my first book I borrowed from the library. So, I finally returned to using the library. And it's the first book I finished. So this is I'm Afraid You've Got Dragons by Peter S. Beagle. This is the same author who wrote The Last Unicorn, which I thought I had the book, but it was actually Into the Land of the Unicorns. I don't remember who the author of that one is. I'll have to look that up on either Storygraph or Goodreads. Because I would love to, see if I can get that one and re-listen to it, because I barely remember it. I don't even remember if I actually ever read it. But, I got that one mixed up with The Last Unicorn by Peter S. Beagle. So I never read that book, but I have seen the cartoon based on this book. Based on that book, not this one. So in this story, like the Last Unicorn, it's very much a fairy tale like story. So you have a main character. Well, there's three main characters. There's Robert, who he inherited his father's profession as a dragon exterminator, but he really hates his job. He loves dragons and appreciates them. He knows to stay away from the dangerous, scary ones. He knows that they're bad. Don't mess with them. But he also he also loves dragons. But, it's his responsibility to continue his father's legacy and be the best dragon exterminator he can be. Well, he is summoned by the king and queen, Queen Helene and King Anton, because their daughter, who is one of our other main characters, their daughter, Charisse, I don't know if I'm saying that name correctly or not, but Charisse is getting married. She has finally found the man of her dreams, and that is Prince Reginald, our final main character. Charisse she didn't want to do this, but then she meets the Prince Reginald and is immediately like, I want that one. But Reginald he likes her well enough, but I don't think he's as interested in her as she is in him. In fact, he has other priorities. He wants to prove to his father he can be a great king and be a good warrior. His father is a warrior. He is, he loves killing and fighting and all that. And he thinks his son is an idiot. So his son wants to prove himself to his father. So he needs to find a quest to slay a monster and also find a wife. And accompanying him is his valet, Mortmain. He was trying to train him to become a warrior. But then, so Charisse has summoned, so Robert goes to the palace to kill all the dragons, but along the way, but his family, I'm trying to remember, when did it happen? Well, at some point, now I remember, sorry, that's very unprofessional of me. Prince Reginald announces the king and queen, he cannot propose to their daughter until he goes on a quest to slay a dragon. And during their quest, their failed quest, they cross paths with a wizard, the wizard Dar, who wants revenge on Reginald's father. So he sets his sights on using Reginald as bait to lure his father. And so Reginald goes on this quest to slay, to find Dar and to, find a dragon he can defeat. And Robert, who has become friends with him, who actually considers him a friend now, decides to go on to help him out. He feels responsible for the prince and getting him And so does Charisse, who, his fiance, his hopeful fiance. So the three of them go on this quest to find the wizard Dar and defeat the dragon, to possibly fight a dragon. But the three of them get more than they bargained for. So this was so much fun. This was really a fun story. In fact, I would love to tell my sister and my nephew about this book because I think he would enjoy it. This was such a fun little world, very whimsical and magical. It has a very medieval inspired setting. I liked all the characters. None of them, they were just like, Robert he's a good person who is not 100% happy with his life, but is accepting of it, and is trying to find a way out of it to better himself, to like, he wants to be a valet, which, although I personally don't get that being his dream, because that means he's basically a slave to a prince. I don't think that is that great of a life. And Mortmain does tell him, points that out to him. It's like, yeah, it's not that great of a life. But Robert does see it as an improvement from slaughtering dragons. And he's a reluctant hero. He's someone who just doesn't want to be a hero, but throughout the story, he learns that he is becoming a hero. Like, even though he doesn't want it, he's destined to be a hero. Despite his lack of title, despite that he's not as handsome as Prince Reginald or any other prince. He has he's smart, but he's not brave. He's not, well, I would say he's brave, actually, because he exterminates dragons. So he faces dragons on a daily basis. Granted, most of them are probably little small little guys, but he's such a good person, a good friend, like I said, he is actually very brave, I think. But he doesn't see himself as a hero. So he's very humble, very self-deprecating person. And sometimes, yeah, that I do get frustrated with him, but I also see where he's coming from. Like, he sees, his role in life is, he is a peasant. And he's not, like I said, he's not seen as good looking as Prince Reginald. And so, of course, in his mind, he's not a hero type. I do like what we find about why he has such a strong connection to dragons. I wish that, although I wish that would be explored more. Like, I feel like there's a lot more to his, like, it would be cool if Peter S. Beagle had written a sequel to this, where we delve more into where he's Robert's, learning about his connection to dragons and why he has it, and understanding it better. And, like, it kind of rushed a little bit, because all I'm going to say about the end is that he does get answers, but I feel like it was a little rushed. Like, there should be more to the story. Let's see. Princess Charisse, she was very stubborn, and, sometimes she acted, in the beginning, she felt like kind of like a spoiled brat a little bit, but I did like how she was very determined to do things, be independent. And also, she was determined to teach herself to learn to read and write, which, okay, so that thing I thought was a little weird, that in this world, the royalty don't know how to read and write. Like, I would think, granted, in a real life medieval times, I think only the monks learn to read and write, so I guess maybe it does make sense. But I don't know, it was just kind of weird, because I would think that, royalty would need to learn how to read and write. To, because I think that would come in handy when leading a country, but leading a kingdom. And I guess maybe they had their valets write things down for them. Like I said, the valets, it sounds like they're basically slaves to the royalty. So I think it was really cool that she was trying to learn to teach herself to read and write, because she probably didn't want to ask for help. like out of embarrassment or out of, or probably being told that you don't need to learn to read and write, like by her parents. And but I like how she put in the effort. She was determined to do that. I do think at times she could be a little reckless. She's not equipped to fight dragons, and she wanting to, save the people that she loves. She goes in there and all, and goes to fight, which you gotta, at the same time, I do think that was very brave of her and admirable of her, but also I'm like, girl, what are you doing? You don't know how to fight these things. It's dangerous. You could get killed. But like I said, she was very stubborn. She didn't listen, and like, Robert had to tell her multiple times to stay back. And most of the time she would not listen. She listened like maybe once or twice. So I think she should have been a little more cautious. But as far now, and then there's Reginald. I liked Reginald. I was worried they would make him kind of an asshole, but he was actually very likable and very sweet, and I would have been okay, if things worked out a little differently than they did. Like with him getting his way more than another character. I'm trying not to spoil anything for you guys, so I'm, editing what I was gonna say. But he could have easily been like an arrogant little prick and a jerk, but he was actually really nice. He respected Robert. He was the one who was like, when he failed at being a hero and slaying his first dragon, and Robert was the one who saved the day the first time, he was like, you should take the credit. You're the one who did the saving, not me. You're the hero. And he even tells him, don't you dare let Mortmain convince you that thing to claim otherwise. Because you're the hero, not me. He was very humble and very honorable, and he was just a good guy. And he was such a softie. Like, he was really sweet. He wasn't, like, I liked him. I don't know why his father's giving him such a hard time. What, because he's not all, like, violence and fighting the monsters? Because there's a way to be a hero without resorting automatically to violence and anger. Like, I think, yes, in this kind of setting, most of the time that does come in handy. But every so often, it's nice to see a character that's a little more for peace. And he didn't, and he didn't ask for this burden any more than Charisse asked to be a princess. Or Robert asked to be exterminator of dragons. Which kind of, they very much, like, I think that kind of was a theme of this story, that these three main characters didn't ask for these roles, but these were the roles given to them, and they accepted it. They were forced to accept it, and they didn't, like, complain. Sometimes they, or at least not openly, they weren't whining about it. They were like, yeah, it sucks, but it's part of who I am, whether I like it or not. And they were, they respected they try their best to respect their parents, and they loved their parents. Even when it was difficult, especially with Reginald, his dad was an ass. But his dad does show him later on the story that he does love him in his way. So now talking about our bad guy, the wizard Dar. Dar doesn't come until later in the story, like kind of in the middle of the story. He was very arrogant, very cocky type of character. And just very, like, he acted like towards the end, like, at one point he started to act kind of like a very childish. Which there are a lot of villains that do when they don't get their way. And he did come off as intimidating and creepy at times, and just thinking he knew everything, and very much a typical power-seeking villain that was like, power, I want more power, and but at first, like, like, but it's a mix of power versus like where he has mixed with having one goal in mind, which is to get revenge on King Kariji. Again, I don't know how to say his name. I love fantasy, but but I, like everybody else, have trouble figuring out how to say a name. But like, I think he's a great villain for a young, for a young adult or kids book. Because I'm assuming this is meant, although they did say a curse word in here. They said the word shit in the book. So maybe this is, like, there is at one point, I don't remember where it is, but they do say the word shit at one point. And our main character is 18. Like, all these kids are in their late teens. So I'm assuming young adult. Because at first I was thinking middle grade. Because some of it felt very middle grade-esque. But then, it started to get a little adult in something, a little more mature in some aspects of the content. So I guess this is probably would probably be considered young adult. This world was really cool. I definitely would love to explore more of it. Like I said, it was a very medieval inspired setting with kingdoms. I also think the dragons were really cool. There were a lot of cute little pet dragons that you could have as pets. And then there were the big vicious dragons. And there's a hint of and also there's hints of the dragons have their own law. They are law unto themselves. Like, they don't understand humans. And there's a little hint of dragon lore explored, but it's not a lot. And I definitely think, again, I would love to explore this world more in like a sequel. Although I don't know if Peter Smigel. Let me look at there's a biography of course there's the. Okay, well he won an award in 2018. So I'm guessing the guy is still around. Let me see the copyright of this one. Sorry, let me look at the copyright of this one. So this came out last year, 2024, and yeah, this is a hardcover book, so I'm assuming. So he's still around. He's still writing. So I think it would be really great if he wrote a sequel to this. And this is actually blurbed by Travis Baltrey. He's the guy who wrote Legends and Lattes. So he really liked this. But I think this would be great for, young fantasy readers. So if I'm right and remembering correctly, it does have the word shit, then I guess maybe I shouldn't pass this down to my nephew just yet. But anyway. But yeah, I really enjoyed this. There is a little bit of romance. There's kind of two romance plots in the story. One that's a minor romance that's hinted at, and the other one is the main love triangle. Because it is kind of a love triangle. But it's not as... I think it's a love triangle. It's a little more, like, not as annoying as some young adult love triangles can be. Like, it's not... The love triangle doesn't take over the story. It's not focused on a lot. But it is there. Like, there's not as many romance moments in the book. There's a little bit of them, though. But there is some romance. But there's, like, it's not up in your face. Like, it's very, very subtle. The second romance is a little less subtle. Like, it's spelled out for you that, you know, one character is in love with another character, and that character they're in love with is in love with someone else. That kind of situation. And which I wanted to know what was going to happen there, but I feel like we didn't. Like, I wanted to know if there was going to be a moment between the two of them, which there kind of was a moment, but it happened so fast. Like we didn't get anything, you know, and really obvious about it. It's like they shared a moment of understanding, but it wasn't like spelled out for you. It wasn't made obvious that these two are gonna get together. It just kind of happened. So but I thought they were cute. The Romans were cute. I gotta say, I did not like Reginald's father, but I did like the King Antoine. He was really cool. He really cared about his daughter, was, you know, appreciated her hobbies, didn't push her to be, you know, didn't push her too much. The mom was a little more pushy, but she at times showed a softer, loving, supportive side. Like, the dad was very supportive of his daughter. Like, she had him wrapped around his little finger. I mean, she had him wrapped around her little finger. So I liked her parents. I liked Robert's mom. She was not taking any, was not going to let Robert get away with feeling sorry for himself and pushing people away. She was very much a mom that was like, I'm not going to let you do this. I'm not going to let you feel sorry for yourself, or just, she pushes him to be better. I also liked his two friends, Osterwald and Elfrida. I liked them. They were the other story, the sub romance plot. Not the main one, the other romance plot. And they were really cute, and really sweet together when they were together. And I kind of felt sorry for Osterwald because, you could tell he was in love with Elfrida, but she had a massive crush on Robert. And it's just like, and I just felt like Osterwald was a good guy. He was a great guy. Like, I feel like I felt bad for him that and he was a very supportive friend. And the problem is that that at times we tend to go for the obvious upfront hero, the guy who's like when we become infatuated with, like, we always, and we don't realize that, oh, maybe this is just a little fancy that I got. Like, maybe he's not really the one that I should be with. But anyway, like I said, this was really a really fun story. Really, a fun little adventure story. It wasn't like an epic adventure, it was but it really, they were just going back and forth between the two kingdoms. So if you want something a little bit bigger and more expanding, this isn't it. This does not have to, because they just go between the two different kingdoms. So we don't get to see a lot of the world, which I would love to see more of it, explore more of it. And I guess that's all I gotta say. I really enjoyed this. I had a good time. It's not my all-time favorite book, but I had a good time with it. And it did inspire me to look into see if on my Libby app if they had The Last Unicorn, so I could actually consume the book. Because, like I said, I've seen the animated movie, but I've never actually read the book. And instead of spending like $20 or like $16.99 or whatever, I would like to just listen to an audiobook. Although I might, one day I might buy it for my niece if she's still interested in unicorns by the time she's old enough to read something like that. But anyway, so that is I'm Afraid You've Got Dragons by Peter S. Beagle. And I hope you check it out. If this sounds like an interesting story to you, please check it out. And those are my thoughts. So I will talk to you later. Hope your reading is going well, and bye.